The next two sections are extended responses. So once again, as I was saying, you have section 3 and section 4 of the paper. Section 3 relates to the mandatory 5 focused areas of the course, and section 4 is in relation to the streamed answer. So like with the previous sections, it's important that you read the question carefully and underline any key terms in there. Part of this question too is, particularly for section 3 in primary industries, there is a rubric in which you sort of need to make sure that you follow and have an understanding. So this gives you a guide as to how the question is going to be marked. So one of them is having an answer which is logical and in sequence, and using relevant industry terminology. Another important aspect for the extended responses is going through and preparing a plan. So most people generally, if they do a plan, is actually on the question paper, which as HSE markers we don't get. So it's probably important that you do your plan in the margins of your writing booklet so that we can have an idea of where you might be going, and if for some reason you do run out of time, you still have your plan there in which we can go through and allocate some marks for your plan. So you mightn't get full marks, but you'll definitely get some marks for including a plan there, as long as we can see where you are heading with that. And then section 4 is looking at the strand that you have studied. We have two strands in primary industries, a livestock health and welfare strand and a plants, pests and diseases strand. In the extended response for section 3, we generally have it as a statement that you need to sort of go through and answer. So from last year's exam, question 20 was name a primary industries enterprise. So identify the types of resources used in this enterprise, analyse strategies that could be implemented to improve the efficiency of the resources, including methods of measuring and monitoring. So this question particularly relates back to the sustainability competency that you study as a mandatory topic. So one of the first things you need to do in your answer is go through and identify a primary industries workplace. So that might be a good idea to write down in your plan what enterprise you're going to talk about. And then in terms of the keywords for this question, we have identify, resources used, and analyse strategies that can be implemented, improve the efficiency, and then measuring and monitoring. So when we're looking at answering this question, as I said, the important thing is to go through and identify an enterprise. So an enterprise that is relevant to the area which I'm from at Dunedin is broadacre cropping. So then what you need to do is go through then and list resources that might be used in this enterprise. So examples might include fertiliser, fuel, infrastructure, electricity. And then you need to analyse the strategies that could be implemented to improve the efficiency. So that one might sort of come down after you look at measuring and monitoring. So if we're looking at measuring and monitoring some of those resources, if we use fertiliser as an example, you might measure how much you put out onto the crop, or before you go and do that, as a monitoring technique, is go out and do some soil tests to determine how much fertiliser you need to put out and what type of fertiliser that you need to put out. If we're looking at those two methods of measuring and monitoring, we can use that to answer implementing strategies to improve the efficiency. So if you're a farmer who goes out and applies fertiliser without sort of going to do a check to see what fertiliser it needs to be put out or at how much rate, one way they can improve that and to become a little bit more efficient is, as I said before, looking at monitoring the type of fertiliser that's needed, so doing soil tests, sending that information off to an agronomist or getting an agronomist to come in and do that, and measuring how much they put out. So it's no use sort of going putting out large amounts and you don't need to put a large amount out. That can do more damage than good in a lot of cases. And then you sort of go through then and just give a bit of a reason as to why a farmer might look at implementing those strategies. Question 21 and question 22. Question 21 will often relate to the animal strand, and question 22 will relate to the plant strand, and section 4 is broken down into part A, B and C, and the value of the mark there increases as you get to part C, which is usually an extended response type question.